also to Farzin Rezaian, also to Ali Reza Mohana for the Alumni Association, the alumni of the College of Engineering of the University of Tehran. Thank you for inviting me. It is such an honor to be here. At Stanford University, we use Farzin Rezaian's books. We use them in my Stanford classes. When Farzin Rezaian comes to Stanford, at the university, the auditoriums are always filled and everyone learns, including our professors. The research, the digital reconstructions, and the virtual reality are of the highest professionalism. So it is so important that we continue to do this great work. 5,000 years of Persian, of Iranian engineering, 5,000 years of Iran's great engineering history. They are very rich, they're very profound, and very much Iranian engineering has led so many parts of the world for millennia. The Neolithic Revolution began with pyrotechnology, the use of fire in Iran. It began here in Iran, in the world. Pyrotechnology for ceramics, for metallurgy, for glass making, and in places like Ganj Dareh, Tale Mushki, Ismail Abed, Haji Firuz Tepe. These are sites, for example, where we have the earliest ceramics in the world. And when you think of the metallurgy of the Proto-Elamites from 3300 BCE, more than 5,300 years ago, the Proto-Elamite metallurgy in copper, in silver, in gold is superior to anything in Mesopotamia. After the Proto-Elamite metallurgy, the technology goes down in Mesopotamia. This is far superior here. Sumer is downhill after Proto-Elamite. The realism of Proto-Elamite metallurgy is rendered in such amazing detail. It gives life to the metals, to these sculptures. When I show the Proto-Elamite sculptures from 5,000 plus years ago at Stanford, my students go, "Ah, it's beautiful." And when you think of the melting temperatures required and achieved, that the melting temperature of copper at over 1,000 degrees Celsius, the melting temperature of gold over 1,000 degrees Celsius, and silver not far below. How they achieved this, how the engineering achieved this with raising the temperature in kilns, possibly with bellows, with air supply. It is astonishing to see the metallurgy here in Iran for those thousands of years. As I mentioned, the ceramics. Ceramic, the clay dug out of rivers, has two states. The early state, when it's wet, it's plastic, it's deformable. You can shape it any way you want. But with pyrotechnology, the Iranian engineers were able to apply heat to it, fire to it, to make it like stone, where it cannot be dissolved, where the temperatures are raised so high. The clay particles bond together and vitrify. They are like stone. This dual state is a miracle of technology. It's a miracle of engineering that started here in Iran. As I mentioned, the places Ganj Dareh, Talimushki, Haji Firuz Tepe. These are places where that miracle of pyrotechnology was first applied and then spread to the rest of the world. You can see this. I saw some of these very same pieces today in the wonderful National Museum of Iran. To move to some of the other areas, of Iranian engineering. The great hydrology, the qanats, the kanis, and the engineers, the mukanis engineers, who were able to take the desert and bring water to it, who were able to take the dry land and bring water from the mountains, where the qanats and the kanis, often if you have the water coming too steep in the receiving end, it floods. But the engineers of the qanats were able to bring the water in at around 1%, so the water wouldn't flow too fast, too much. You had the great medieval engineer, Karaji, who wrote his treatise, In Search of Hidden Waters, who was able to show and to tell that these qanats can often, the channels go more than 30 meters, sometimes you have 300 meters depth, sometimes you have 30 meters, but to bring the waters to the hungry and thirsty, to take the dry land and to make it flour. When you think of the Persian qanat or kanis technology, the engineers had a great influence on the Greeks and then the Romans to make the great aqueducts. The aqueducts of Rome, which I have also worked on, required first to learn from ancient Iran. And that is a fact, that the Romans were in awe of that technology. There is also the road construction of ancient Iran. The royal road from Sardis to Susa, 1,000+ miles, with the couriers who could bring messages. Every day, new messengers on new horses, the beautiful horses of Persia. And our own United States postal system in New York City, perhaps you can see, Herodotus wrote down the postal system of the Achaemenids, of the Royal Persians. And where it says in the Herodotus account that not snow, not rain, nothing will stop the message from being delivered day after day. And our United States postal system borrowed that from Persia to create messengers. We could go on and on about so much of the technology. Now, you know the name Iskander, yes. I first want to say this aphorism. Kar fekr mikonad Iskander Persia sa tashkir kard. Vali ma midanim Persia Iskander ra tashkir kard. You know. The West thought that Alexander, Iskander, conquered Persia, but we know that Persia conquered Alexander. Yes. You know this. Greek engineering, Greek mathematics only flowered after Alexander. After Alexander's engineers and scientists brought back better understanding from Persia to Greece. One name stands out early, Pythagoras. But Pythagoras learned from the East. The Pythagorean theorem did not begin in Greece. The very greatest engineers and scientists, the greatest minds of engineering and mathematics in Greece, if you think Theophrastus, Euclid, and Archimedes, all came after Alexander. What does that prove? The scientists from Greece who came with Alexander brought back the knowledge of higher mathematics and engineering from Persia to Greece. The best Greek mathematics after Alexander. The best engineers after Alexander. You understand. It starts here. Now, I want to talk for a moment about Persepolis and the engineering there of the stoneworking. I work on stone provenance, the sourcing of the stone, the weathering of the stone, the technology of the stone. And the finest stone, the finest limestone, almost in the world, is the Marvdash limestone in the Zagros area west of Persepolis. The Marvdash limestone for Persepolis was so fine-grained, but it's also very strong. The engineers of Iran, the engineers of Persia, they knew that Marvdash fine limestone was perfect in the scale of hardness from talc and chalk to diamond. The hard limestone of the Marvdash is exactly in the middle, meaning that it is both workable and durable. The inverse of workability is durability. The inverse of durability is workability. The Marvdash limestone is perfect in the middle, meaning that it will both last a long time, but accept fine detail for sculpture and architecture. I try to say this in Farsi. Mohandisane Irani sange ahake Marvdash ra mishinaktand. میدانستان سنگ احق بهن دوام و کارای میباشد بنابراین این سنگ برای عمارت و مجسمه بهترین است چرا که ریزه کاری به استحکام را تامین میکند. The Persian engineers knew this. It's very important. They knew that the limestone of the Marvdash was the best in the world. You can see this at Persepolis, you can see this in other sites of the Achaemenid. So they knew their stone, they knew their water, they knew the hydrology, they knew their metals, they knew the technology. This new book, this conference, exemplifies the best of that engineering from Iran for 5,000 plus years. I wish I could say more, but I would like to state, because I am also a poet, sometimes I think I'm a better poet than archaeologist, I want to read a poem about Kurush, Bagi Kurush, in English. Kurush made his garden in Pasargad, channeling water from the purple Zagros, planting his scented grove in ordered rows, bringing in water and light to his orchards, whose hundreds of trunks the sun gilded, and whose leaves rustled with the language of many satrapies. Later kings fashioned their great halls of the 100 columns after the garden of Kurush, whose empire was rooted in earth but looked heavenward. At night stars glimmered like fruit hung high in the garden's branches, and voices of fountains sang like choirs of children under flowering trees. At sunset and at dawn, when the air was cool, Kurush, great gardener of Persia, stood alone in the glorious sun, spreading his arms to either far horizon. Even then, Kurush hardly cast a shadow, instead spreading light around the world. The rest of the world has followed Iran. The rest of the world has followed. And to me, Kurush was one of the greatest men in the world. And I see here in Iran that he was only one of the first of many great Persians. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Patrick Hunt. به قول شاعر خوشتران باشد که سر دلبران گفته آید در حدیث دیگران. واقعا انسان احساس غرور میکنه که از زبان استاد فرهیخته و دانشمندی بشنوه که به نقل قولی از هرودوت داشتن در صحبتاشون که نه برف و نه باران و نه طوفان هیچ کدام نمیتوانستند مانع انجام وظیفه چاپارهای ایرانی شوند، چون راههای خوبی ساخته بودند، چون زیرساختهای خوبی ساخته بودند که شرق و غرب قلمرو اونها رو به هم متصل میکرد. و اون جمله که گفتن اسکندر نبود که ایران رو فتح کرد، این ایران بود که اسکندر رو فتح کرد، همه اینها برای ما احساس غرور به بار میاره. Thank you, Professor Patrick Hunt, for your great remarks and also nice poems. We really enjoyed. خب ما مطلع شدیم در جمع ما جناب آقای دکتر عباس آخوندی، وزیر محترم راه و شهرسازی و مهمتر از همه دانش آموخته دانشکده فنی تشریف آوردن، به جمع ما پیوستند که به ایشون هم خیر مقدم میگیم و حضورشون رو گرامی میداریم. We have been informed that His Excellency Dr. Abbas Akhundi, Minister of Road and Urban Planning, has joined our meeting and we thanked for his cherishing presence. سخنران بعدی ما یک استاد برجسته دیگر هستند به نام آقای دکتر دیتریش هوف از آلمان که رئیس سابق مؤسسه باستانشناسی آلمان در ایران هستند. ایشون رو کسانی که باستانشناس هستند هم به عنوان معمار میشناسند هم به عنوان باستانشناس که کار عمدهشون تخت سلیمان هست و فیروزآباد فارس و به هر حال متخصص معماری و باستانشناسی ساسانی هستند که ازشون دعوت میکنیم برای ایراد سخنانشون به جایگاه تشریف بیارن. Our next speaker is His Excellency Dr. Dietrich Hof, the former head of Institute of Archaeology of German in Iran, and he is famous for his works on Takht Suleiman, and he is architect also, an expert on architecture of Sasani. So bitte kommen Sie und sprechen Sie hier.
Excellencies, Eminences, dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen. At first, also I want to thank very much and cordially for the invitation to come here, and my thanks go to all the members who are preparing this very glorious event, especially to the Association of the Alumni of the Technical Engineering branch of Tehran University. I feel very greatly honored that I can speak here about some aspects of another great man in Iran, a man who has from whom we have much more precise information, and whose history, although never completely clear, is one of the most interesting one in Iran. It's a funny thing that there is a great similarity of the fate of this man, Ardashir Babakan, with Darius I. I cannot go into depth with this, but it is astonishing how both men had the same fate, had the same results. What we know about their ideas of statesmanship, of government, is very, very close together. Both adored the same God, Ahura Mazda. So it seems that they are really a kind of rebirth. The most funny thing, however, is that the Sasanians knew very, very few about their predecessors, the Achaemenians, and that there was a long, long time and span of time in between both of them. Well, I have to cut short I was asked to speak about the round city, which Ardashir Papakan founded in the plain which is today known as Firuzabad, Fars, and about a special technical or engineering aspect of this city. Ardashir Papakan defeated the army of the Parthian great king in 224 AD. And yes, there you can see the result of the battle. Ardashir and the killed, just as he had killed Al-Taban. And immediately afterwards, when he declared himself Shah of Iran, he made clear which kind of government he was going to establish in Iran. He saw himself as king selected by the god Ahura Mazda. In the same words, Darius did this, and he felt that he had to re-establish the glory of the Iranian Empire, which had been destroyed by Alexander, and which had not really, as far as he saw it, been re-established by the Parthians, which were regarded as weak and had a rather loose and ineffective government. It's another question whether it's true or not, but that was the opinion at that time. We may ask now why he made a change in his residence. He had become usurper, self-declared rebellious king of Issachar and Fars, and was permanently in war with the Parthian great king. So why did he do this foundation in the plain of Firuzabad? And there are a lot of possibility or possible explanations. The two most convincing ones are: the first is security. He had to be prepared that the great king with his army would very quickly come and attack him and bring him to court because he was seen as a lawless bandit. And the precautions which he took, you can see by this building. His first palace, Kache Aval, he built within a great, large fortification system above the gorge Tangeab, where these reliefs are carved in the rock. And the building itself looks like a gigantic fortress. In fact, it was a real palace of, at that time, unknown splendor. In the background, you see the plain of Firuzabad here, and there is the center of the town with this tower, which we shall see afterwards. The other reason to choose Firuzabad, the Firuzabad plain, was that the plain was, according to all or nearly all medieval chronicles, a lake at his time. It was not a lake, we must imagine, like a sea with depth and permanent water, but it was a kind of inundation which laid the plain underwater for a large part of the year, so that arable and Keshervars was not really possible there, and the plain was densely populated. Ardashir saw very clearly that if he could drain the water and drain the plain, he would gain quite a lot of arable land and divide this or give this land to landless people who would become his followers. The other thing was that he obviously wanted to lay out a new system of city and landscape all over the plain. And this he could do only if the plain was empty from people and not arable. Otherwise, he would have come into trouble with local ownership, and that was the last he could use at that time. So, the layout of this new city is speaking. It declares very clearly the way in which he intended to set up his government. He was convinced that only a strongly organized authoritarian government could make Iran a great power again, and this he was going to show in a kind of model, a living model of an empire in miniature, in smaller scale. That means he built a city completely centralized, and this city was just the core of the complete division of the plain. Well, this is just a sketch plan of the round city. It had main axis. Altogether, there were 20 segments of the city with one extra segment, and this system of the city itself was spreading all over the plain. The program of Ardashir was double, and both functions were unified in one plan. The first was that the system had to have drainage. So the main axis of all this, the town, this is from here to here, a drainage canal. The water, and you can see it from the side of the town itself. This is the walls of the town, and here you can see clearly, not very clearly, but you can see it, a line which goes over there, and from here to there, this was a draining canal. From that point, the canal divided into two semicircles and surrounded the city like as a defense ditch. It came out from the town here and then continued down here to the corner of the plain where it turned off and the water was going in this direction. From the northern area of the city, these radiant canals brought surface water into the defense ditch. So this was the main drainage system which he laid out. The rest we have to leave because of lack of time. There was certainly quite a lot of work to be done, lowering the riverbed so that the water could more quickly run out from the plain, and there was no longer the necessity of, or the problem of the inundations. But this is all not the case. You can see this quite clearly. The only reason for the direction of the system was the sloping ground of the plain. And this is demonstrated by the river. You see it goes down in this direction directly from the entrance to the plain and to the axis. And you see that that Ardashir's main axis of drainage and land division was practically parallel to the river. So there's no need to find superior or supernatural reasons for the layout of the plain. There's one additional activity of Ardashir, or his engineers, who made his drainage system nationwide famous. You can read in Ibn al-Balkhi's Farsnameh, beginning of 14th century, that Ardashir had a tunnel cut or drilled through a great mountain, and that they had a very ingenious engineer who did so, but when they had they came through with the tunnel. The water dashed through it, and all the people, the workmen, and this engineer Boraz Bey, were drowned and killed. This, of course, is fairy tale. The Karname Ardashir, that's a book about the deeds and activities of Ardashir, and is dated to late Sasanian time. This has a very short and pregnant information. It says Ardashir also cut through a big mountain and made great masses of water stream out. And he made villages and farmland flourish. And that's, I think one couldn't say the activities of Ardashir in a better and shorter way. Now, maybe one thinks at first this is just a fairy tale too, but it was not. There is a concrete core of these tales. When we made our service there, we were enthusiastic, that's correct, that we saw in this plain, in this side valley of Boraz Bey, here, a long foundation wall, as you can see it here in the air photograph, running beside the street. From this rocky mountain which separates this small valley from the great Firuzabad plain. There was a tunnel here in that area from where nowadays water is brought into the plain and now only irrigates this village and its environments. Actually, the reason what the total system was is that nowadays the water level in the Firuzabad plain was sinking down, and there was not enough water to be brought from here, from these rich sources along the rivers and then into this side valley. And so, we don't know when, they made a lower tunnel here, and this brought only enough water to irrigate this rather small area. But originally, the foundation of this wall was the remainders of an aqueduct, that means a water-carrying wall on top. And the interesting thing is that this aqueduct aims directly, precisely to the center of the city of Ardashir Khore. Although you could neither look in from there into this valley, nor could you see the center of the city from this valley. So this was really a great engineering success to make this very, very precise gradient coming into existence. Now we go on and ask, how did they do it? How could they do this? How could they manage to make all these walls and ditches and drainage canals with this precision? Therefore, we have to return to the city center. You see that is the middle part of the round city. And there are two main buildings here. Well, this one is called Tahtanishin. It should be better be called Dانشکده. Here you see it. And behind is this tower in the center of the city, which is called Tirbal or Minar. Next, please. We cannot speak much about this Tahtanishin, which is actually let's say, the mother of all Sasanians' fire temples of the following centuries. Just here you see our excavation beginning with my colleague, Dr. Lilinia Khan here, working at the Niveau. They had this not, and on top there are two gentlemen, Usta Azam and his brother Saifullah of the Kazemi families, which were our unreplaceable helpers in all questions of stone transport, stone repair, restoration, and so on. Now, we have to deal mainly with this tower, well known and very often mistaken according to the wrong publication of Dieu la foi. There was never a fire temple on top of this, as it is generally thought. It was just the core of a rectangle, of a square stair house and a pillarkhane. And you can see the traces of the flight of steps. In this case, it's the vault which came up here, winding around this tower originally. Here you have the existing, this is what you see now. And you must imagine that it was in reality a tower, a burj like that. It was a really fortress-like tower in the center of the city, and we certainly are not wrong thinking that Ardashir consciously wanted this to be understood as, let's say, the symbol of the king or of the kingship as a strongly fortified and powerful element. But the original function, or the function proper of this tower, was